Hi, I'm Jameson Newlander, Alan Frog from the Lost Boys, and you're watching the Frog Brothers podcast.
What's Scooby-Doo running from a spooky ghost?
It's refreshment time, folks.
Are either one of these any good?
Do you like scary movies?
I don't watch movies.
I have to return some videotapes.
You have a TV? No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. Don't need a TV.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me Shell. It's the fucking truth.
Over 1,600 titles, each for rent at just $2 the first night, and only...
Finish him.
I don't watch TV.
Yeah, but you are aware that there's an invention called television, and on this invention they show shows, right?
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
Okay, I want channels 18, 24, 63, 109, 87, and the Weather Channel.
Welcome to the Frog Brothers podcast with your hosts, Justin and Alec.
Hello, and welcome to episode 95 of the Frog Bros podcast. My name is Justin, and I have COVID. And with me is Alec, and he doesn't, so I'm staying away from him and anyone else for the time being. So I'm at home again. Finally turned on a Zoom background instead of using a little blanket behind me. So what you may see here, and if I move out of the way, is the museum from Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, the museum.
That's the manhole we want to climb in and fight in and climb out of and hug. A little bit of news today. How are you doing, Alec?
I'm doing.
You're doing. I see our esteemed colleague and most precious mascot, Booger, there beside you.
Yeah, he's...
Welcome aboard, Booger. I know you can't hear me, but you're a dog and you matter.
He can probably hear you through the headphones. He's got super hearing.
Yeah, he does.
Daredevil, but better, because I get to cuddle him at night.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's true. So there's some news out in the world today. Apparently, new year, new deaths. So that's the big topic right now, is everyone's checking out.
Basically,
their deaths. So Meatloaf died. Yeah, and Meatloaf, man, he's for film connoisseurs, he's had some roles out there, you know.
Yeah, I saw an extraordinary amount of people, obviously saying his name was Robert Paulson, which was, you know, I'm not gonna lie, that was my first thought when he died, just because he played as a dead guy in that scene. Yes. But I'm more fond of his appearance in Rocky Horror, but that's just because his appearance is a better appearance. It's like a cooler character and whatnot, and he fucking sings.
He dies in that movie too, so...
Exactly. What's funny about that is I saw a couple posts like from women making... posts like, ugh, everybody's talking about Fight Club, like, and then like blah blah blah, edgelords, this and that. Can we just talk about Rocky Horror? I'm like, okay, those are on the same wavelength of I think I'm edgy when I'm 16 and I'm seeing movies that aren't mainstream for the first time, but they are. I mean, those are the most mainstream of the cult movies. So I don't know. I love both of those movies, and I get what you're saying. Fight Club is one of those movies that's associated with people in shitty ways because they like to idolize the terrible behavior in some of those.
Well, they don't realize like the whole purpose of that, right? You really have to read the book to get the behind the scenes stuff that's not written out in direct interpretation, right? Because in the movie, they don't explain to you that he's trying to bring down the banking system because he thinks debt is bullshit, right? So a lot of people would be like, oh, fuck, man, this guy's brilliant. He's way ahead of his time. And yeah, that book is. The movie's more about...
I wasn't trying to get in a whole discussion about Fight Club.
I know.
I'm just
I
saying.
know, but I'm just saying, you know, like the movie's it's got a lot of other stuff to it. But yeah, to your point, man, Meatloaf in Rocky Horror is fucking great. He comes in, he fucking does his thing, and like, you know.
Yeah.
And that was in the prime of his music career, right? Right there in the 70s. So really kind of just there doing his thing.
Yeah, but Bat Out of Hell didn't, what was that, like late 80s, early 90s even for that one? That's like his most popular work. So even then, he still peaked further. So...
Oh, for sure.
Brilliant guy. As far as music goes. I don't know about that whole, he might have died from COVID because he didn't get the vaccine. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but either way.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man.
I'm not getting the vaccine. I'm not going to...
Yeah, that's neither here nor there. Like, that's your own. You choose the consequences. So
Yeah, he said,
Fuck it!
exactly, do what you want, man. He did what made him happy, and that's how it worked out for him. So
Come on, kill me, I'm here!
that's what he said to Corona.
that's Alec walking into the emergency room without a mask. Louis Anderson died. Comedian, had a cartoon there for a little while. I think a lot of our generation would kind of really understand and know about.
Yeah. All right.
Kind of an interesting guy. I didn't really follow him as much. So. Oh, fuck yeah. You got to play these jams, man.
So Meatloaf is no longer with us. The meatloaf is spoiled. You need to throw that out. And
Proposal.
Louis Anderson. What can I say about Louis Anderson? I don't remember much of his career. I remember some stand-up clips on YouTube, and I remember that cartoon show from the 90s. But, he had a couple movie appearances and stuff like that. That's about all I have to say about that.
Yeah, he's somewhere in the pop culture list of things that were pertinent at one point in time or another. So for those fans that were big into him, we had to mention it. But I thought you were playing sad music for something else.
What's that?
So recently, Alec and I were fucking seriously clowning on Ghostbusters Hell Fury. Not gonna happen. It's dumpster fire. And
no, that deserves this.
Yeah. Okay.
Baby music. Because they're children if they think that thing's ever getting made.
You thought your movie was gonna get made.
Oh, I want to make a Ghostbusters movie.
Do it again today.
I'm making a Ghostbusters movie. It's gonna be fun. It's because it's a sequel. Look at all these characters I'm gonna have. It's not a movie. It's a web series. And look at these. This person left, but now this person's in it. Oh no! Hold on! Now I got a co-director, and he was in a Ghostbusters documentary that was really, really sad. And then he left too. He left us.
That's what I would do, because I never got involved. They actually asked me to be Walter Peck in that before, and I was like, no, I'm not going out there for a free. I'm not doing any of that for free, and to be a Walter Peck.
No.
No, like, I get that I could pull that look off. I mean, I'm an asshole. I have that kind of disgusting look to my paleness and my gingery beard. So yeah, I get why you could ask me that. But I got more sense than that. I got a little more sense than that. Come on now.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I hate to say it, but we called it. Like, that's not going to happen. And then all the stuff coming out, like all the shit we already knew, like the director is kind of an asshat and like degrading and just a dick to people.
Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash.
Can he make a sequel to Top Gun instead, where he jumps into the river?
Oh Jesus!
The Coast Guard will come get him. We'll even give him some green ink so they can find him from the helicopter.
Are you really? Do you know that the director of that movie committed suicide off a bridge, right? I thought you were fucking joking about. So it took me a minute to realize you were talking about the scene where Goose dies, as opposed to me thinking of Tony Scott committing suicide off the Golden Gate Bridge.
It's a popular spot.
It is, and he died.
Yeah, I feel bad for that, but I can't change it now.
No.
If you're feeling like doing that, please reach out to somebody that can help you, because it just goes to show that no matter what level you're at, how successful you are, you can still succumb to the darkness within. I don't like to joke about that too much unless it's my own, because I've experienced those feelings before.
I would prefer, if I had money, I would never have suicidal feelings ever again. If I just had enough money that I wasn't ever like, oh, can I pay that bill?
Yeah, if you never had to have the stress and anxiety of, yeah.
That's really my biggest concerns with society and capitalism and how it affects me every day in my mental health. So.
I could understand totally why. But I did not mean to make that. I just meant that, and I didn't actually say the director should kill himself. I just said he should jump in the water. Actually, what he should do is one of those trust falls with people, because I bet he'd wind up with a concussion. That's actually a better idea. Because no one would catch him. Like, oh, there goes that asshole again. Hey, you gonna clean up the mess you made on the floor? Fucking head.
You're a mean one.
It's the Grinch. Some other fun news. Hey, you know what I watched last night?
What did you watch last night? Not Ghost Ship.
The Eternals. No, I forgot to watch Ghost Ship last night. I was thinking I only had one movie to watch this week, and then I looked in the notebook today and I was like, well.
Did you lose a bet on, is that why you watched the Eternals?
No, I just needed it for completeness. I've seen it once and I'll never see it again. It's, it felt, mostly because there's a lot of British speaking roles in the film. It felt a lot like Game of Thrones meets sci-fi, like modern sci-fi, and it was pretty boring. So much of that movie should have just been left on the editing floor, or it should have been a TV series about each of these people here, so you like maybe gave a shit about them. But they had so many people. I'm like, I don't care about you. You live forever. You're like some sort of non-vampire vampire. Really, really kind of boring.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, when you think about it, it's opening up the door to some big bad villains, which I see why they wanted to do it, but snooze fest. And the credit scenes were the most exciting part of that movie, but even they weren't that exciting.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of Game of Thrones, one of the guys from Game of Thrones, Kit Harington, to play Jon Snow, for all you fans of the Game of Thrones program, is going to play the Black Knight in the Marvel movies, and so...
Who gives a fucking shit?
Yeah, we'll see when they get around to that. They got a lot of stuff on their slate now, so now that they're casting like all these lesser-known characters, which I feel like I should say that like Tim Armstrong for a minute. Hi, my name is Tim, I'm a lesser-known character.
Yeah, basically.
And which reminds me that now that I say that,
Is a failure to communicate.
Marvel Legends is basically comes out swinging. You know, they unzipped it and they flopped it on the desk and they shook it around a little bit, and then everyone was impressed when they saw the VHS tape boxes of Mr. Sinister, Jubilee, and Wolverine in the new Marvel Legends 90s X-Men cartoon inspired box art.
Oh.
And the characters look great. Pretty excited for that line.
Nice.
And the fact that they're bringing that series back, I think, is a perfect way to reintroduce those characters. So I'm hoping they do a whole line with those VHS box art, but it's going to be interesting because I really want that, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to go down the rabbit hole of collecting X-Men.
Yeah.
If anything, I'll just get Wolverine to have, because that's like an iconic thing, because he even includes the picture frame and the photo of Jean Grey and Cyclops. So, like, if anything, you can recreate the meme of Wolverine laying on a bed, kind of being a creep. So.
Have to pound one out.
Yeah, we all know what he's going to do. Keep them claws away, though. I guess he can't heal, though. So that poses interesting questions.
Yeah, it does.
Does that grow back? Does that grow back if he cuts it off on accident?
Does it grow back bigger?
Exactly.
Fuck it!
I'd chop it off a few times, you know?
Worked for Freddy Krueger when he chopped his fingers off. They came back.
Yeah, that's true.
Wolverine? I don't know. And then there's some other interesting news. Ghostbusters Afterlife is very close to meeting the box office total from Answer the Call. Everyone's hyped up about that. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. I just like the fact that it's still making money. So, and then we are a week away from the physical media release, basically. So excited to get that in our hands so we can watch all this stuff. I've avoided the digital copy, and I knew it was going to be difficult, but I've had a busy enough month that I've been able to get by. And ready to dive into those extra features and everything.
Yeah.
But most importantly, if you're not doing anything with yourself, Alec has a birthday coming up. And his birthday falls on January 29th. Alec's birthday. Alec turns 31. Pretty excited for you to turn 31.
Like that.
Just like you'll be excited when I turn 40 sometime. Got a couple years to go. Ooh-ah. But if you want to help out Alec, you can DM him to find his address to send him something nice for his birthday. He accepts private Snapchats. He accepts OnlyFans subscriptions. He accepts pictures of buttholes.
From the right buttholes. Don't just go send
Exactly.
buttholes.
Yeah, don't
need that.
Yeah.
Don't. Oh God. Destroyed as of now.
And then if you need to know what he needs from his collection, just ask him. He's still got some needs. He hasn't been buying much lately. So, he might have some of those collecting needs just to make him feel a little bit better about himself.
That's a fact, Jack. I haven't got much lately.
I haven't got you anything for your birthday yet, but you know what I did buy for myself? One of the Tony Taylor Toys Glowzarian emblems.
Yeah.
Match the glow-in-the-dark figures I got now. Yeah.
Nice.
Gotta get that. I'd get it for you, but you don't have the glow-in-the-dark yet, so... You got the one, don't you?
I just don't have them yet. They haven't... I think they're pushed back till February.
Gotcha. Well, that's most of what I had for the news.
Yeah.
Been in a kind of a wild week.
It's about all the news.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I guess we're gonna, go for it.
You know what I just watched?
Me pulling a can off some moron's fist?
Return of the Jedi.
Did you see Alien? When that creature was in that guy's stomach?
Oh my god. Oh my god.
You ever seen that really old movie? Empire Strikes Back?
Jesus, Tony.
Welcome to Retro Release Reviews.
Welcome to Retro Release Reviews. Tonight's features from the year 2001.
What? How many David Lynch movies have we covered?
I'm not sure. I haven't counted. We need to go through and get a running total.
Did we do Lost Highway?
Yes.
I think we did Lost Highway and Eraserhead.
Yes, we did Eraserhead.
So I think those are the only two we've done until now.
Yeah, we're going to go through all the Lynch stuff, I think. We really kind of got to get through.
We probably should have done Dune, but there was just too much Ghostbusters hype for that time period. So
yeah, and we can always circle back to Dune. I mean, they did announce that Dune's going to get the sequel all ready for that, so we should go back and cover Dune and talk about that sooner than later, I suppose. But we had to talk about this masterpiece.
Yeah.
So this is actually widely regarded as one of his best features by many.
As this movie is studied in film schools. He was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Director for it, which it, says on the front of the box.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what order I saw this in, as opposed to, I saw Twin Peaks first, and then I started watching his other movies later, and I think I watched Blue Velvet and Lost Highway before this. But I knew this was kind of close to his magnum opus as far as the films are concerned, it's really good. So the first time I watched it, I was really just confused out of my fucking asshole.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. I tell you what, from taking notes podcasting, you really learn this next level of being able to take away stuff from a film, right?
And also,
you're a little bit more aware of it.
David Lynch also just fucking does shit sometimes, and there isn't an explanation for some of it, so it's just there.
When you read about this in the background, right, and everyone's always trying to figure out the secret to David Lynch's movies and stuff, David Lynch does not give a fuck. He's made this movie, and it's up for your interpretation. He's not here to answer your fucking questions. If you
he does not do commentaries.
Can't figure it out.
Your questions about the plots. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Because it leaves it to everyone's own interpretation. So take away from it what you will. That being said, there are a lot of things in there that, they discuss. Well, I don't really discuss in the movie, but if you watch it, you'll see that it always just seems like what we're seeing is a moment or two behind of what's actually going on, when you're trying to digest it, right? So it takes several viewing for a lot of his films to really get the most out of them, right? They're not just a one and done thing.
Some of them are more linear and they make more sense though. You can watch Blue Velvet and be like, yeah, I just watched Blue Velvet and I kind of understand everything that's happening other than, some undertones and themes you might not understand, but you understand the plot. But then there's other David Lynch movies you're couldn't even really fucking tell you what I just watched. And this is one of those, and the one after it, Inland Empire, is kind of similar.
Yeah.
and which is closer to Twin Peaks: The Return, is closer to his later half of his career, as opposed to Twin Peaks. The original stuff feels more like Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart. So
I think this kind of falls kind of in the middle there. There's definitely some things in this that really are almost transitional for him, right? And I would say that's why it stands out to many people, is why it's one of his better works. And I'm not going to say it's one of his better works, maybe for the casual viewer, but we love all of David Lynch's stuff here. So it's not like we can be like, well, I don't really understand this or that. Like,
if I had to rank his movies, though, this would be in the top 3 for sure. I just don't know which order, personally, the favorite would be. But let's talk about the cast.
Yeah, Naomi Watts.
She was pretty new at the time to movies and stuff like that. She's a babe in this. I'm trying not to be too gross about it, but she is hot. She's fine. And Laura Elena Herring is Naomi Watts basically plays the character we're first introduced to as Betty.
Yes.
We'll just
later find out she also plays a character named Diane. We'll get into that later on, so we'll just cover the dualities right now. It's not uncommon in Lynch films, right, to have a character play more than one role, so don't overthink it yet if you haven't seen it. But hopefully if you're listening to this, you've seen it.
Well, the whole doppelganger thing occurs in multiple things, as well as like body switching and things like that too, so it's like just a bunch of interesting concepts. Laura Elena Herring, though, as Rita, Justin Theroux as Adam Kesher. Justin Theroux's cool because he's in, like, I think the first time I saw him probably was American Psycho.
Yeah.
He plays Timothy Bryce. I guess it's Price, I think, in the movie, but it's Bryce in the book, I think. And
this is his first collaboration with David Lynch, was this, and then he also went on to be in Inland Empire, so...
Yeah, and then he wrote Iron Man 2, I think. Like, he's a very interesting, accomplished dude, I think, so...
Yeah.
Ann Miller is Coco. Fucking classic acting since the 30s. Just, here I am in this movie.
Yeah, she's great in that too, right? She has a great role, and then, shows up several times. So.
Yeah. Robert Forster, which is his recently off Jackie Brown, and, he was a bigger actor in the 70s and stuff too. He was in a couple movies that I've seen from Mystery Science Theater 3000, like in the 70s. So he's been around, and that's why Tarantino used him probably, and David Lynch probably saw him in Jackie Brown, to be honest, because he was getting relevant again,
Yeah.
He's one of the detectives. The other detective is Brent Briscoe, who is often a cop. He's in Dark Knight. He's in Twin Peaks: The Return as a cop as well. So, Dan Hedaya is one of the Castilli brothers. The other Castigliani brothers is Angela Badalamenti himself. And then Billy Ray Cyrus as Gene.
Yeah. Yep.
Just rules.
Hilarious. That's such a random thing for him to be in the movies, but I get it. At the time, like, he was still trying to become more than just a music star. So if you look at his stuff there, it makes sense.
Yeah.
He's not terrible. He's kind of forgettable. He's got a couple of decent moments in there.
It's mostly just his looks that you need him for.
Yeah. Yeah, he delivers on the dialogue fine, but yeah, it's 95% of it. It's just how he looks.
Originally, this was theorized it was going to be pitched as a sequel series to Twin Peaks, and it was basically following Audrey to Hollywood, and then they ended up changing it to just kind of its own thing, filming a pilot, which David Lynch was not happy with because he said they were rushed into completing and stuff like that, and he had to fucking sacrifice plot elements and things. They did not want the pilot, so he was like, well, fuck it, I'm going to turn this shit into a movie then. And then he turned it into a movie, and it was nominated for an Academy Award, so...
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there's a percentage somewhere online of like what he actually used from that pilot made it into the movie, but there is some of that's...
Yeah, it's interesting.
There.
And the DVD comes with an insert here, which you probably can't see up close very well, but here. It basically has David Lynch's 10 clues to unlocking this thriller. I'm going to read these off in real quick and then refer to them as they are in my notes. as we talk about this thing. But what's interesting about this is he's actually giving people something to go off of and like, here, try to figure this shit out. So number 1 is pay particular attention in the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits. Number 2, notice appearances of the red lampshade. Number 3, can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kesher is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again? Number 4, an accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident. Number 5, who gives a key and why? Number 6, notice the robe, the ashtray, the coffee cup. 7, what is felt, realized, and gathered at the Club Silencio? Number 8, did talent alone help Camila? Number 9, note the occurrences surrounding the man behind Winkies? And number 10, where is Aunt Ruth? I think it's easiest to split this movie into 2 basic chunks, the first half and sort of the last, little less than a half. But either way, let's just kind of go in order and go with what we see with, especially considering before the credits, you're supposed to be able to notice 2 things.
Yeah, so the beginning of this movie starts out, it's a little trippy because you see, I wrote down dancing kids, but they're dancing, they're teenagers, basically young adults. Let's put it that way, right? And they're dancing, and there's versions of them in full color. There's also versions in silhouette you can't really see. And there's a purple background, and then this really important piece is that you see the close-up of a few people there. You can't quite make out the faces because they're kind of washed out, but that does come back into play later on.
Yeah, it does kind of show it. You can see that it's Naomi Watts and basically her grandparents.
Yes.
This is a jitterbug contest we're looking at, by the way, which will come back into play later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like this it's kind of like David Lynch was working on this for a while or something, because it's still in this like swing era of the 90s that was not happening anymore in 2001. But then there's the fuzzy overlay like we talked about, and then breathing. And you're kind of like lurking through a very dark apartment or something, or a house, or, whatever. And then basically you just see red sheets and you kind of fall into them.
And the red sheets are very interesting, right? Because the dark red Lynch uses all the time in his stuff, right? Whether you're talking about the curtains in Twin Peaks or, there's other examples out there, but that dark red color is just kind of almost a gateway to something unnatural.
Yeah, it's always, but
it's not always correct. Like in this case, you kind of fall through the sheets and then you just move to the next part of the story, right? That's not.
I think this is actually one of David Lynch's most, like, once you figure it out, oh, this is easy to understand what I'm watching. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of subtext and stuff like that too. That's not like that stuff's not obvious still. But from this point on, like, this is reality in that quick moment, and then she's falling asleep. Whoever that is, or whoever, might not be she at this point. We don't know but that character, it looks like, oh, this person's falling asleep, indicating that maybe we're about to enter a dream or a dream state or a dream world. So, with that in mind, then you see the street sign, and we kind of start the credits.
Yeah, the flashing lights reflecting off a Mullholland Drive sign. And then you see the credits start to roll up with, some of the key actors.
We drove through the Mullholland Drive hills when we were in LA.
Yeah, we did. That was awesome.
Saw the street signs and stuff. Yeah, and then you get the Mullholland Drive theme by Angelo Badalamenti. It's just like some dark and brooding, beautiful synthesizers.
And he is, frequent collaborator with Lynch, and so he knocks this one out of the park. There's some stuff that's just very subtle that would be easily overdone with orchestral music, and he does a great job at just setting an eerie mood very minimalistically in a lot of the parts of this film.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, some of it, if it doesn't sound like music, Angelo might not have even done it, because David Lynch does a lot of weird sound design too that's just borderline takes the place of scores, something. Yeah. So there's a lot of that in this one too. But anyway, there's a woman in the car.
And there's 2 men driving it.
Yeah. And it's kind of like she looks like she's kind of concerned about something, and they stop the car. One points a gun at her, the driver, and then one of them gets out and is trying to get her to get out of the car. And she's like, well, fuck this. I don't know we don't stop here. What's happening? And then it keeps flashing to this other car that's like driving through the hills like fucking crazy maniacs, like they're teenagers or something.
It's like two cars of teenagers driving and they're street racing, and then it looks like, at least, because it's a fast sequence, right? And the details aren't necessarily that important, but it's fascinating just the way they show you like the terror of these two cars racing and not realizing
the details of it that are important are just the ones that I was kind of like,
yeah,
like them pulling over. There's two people in the front. One of them looks back and tells her to get out. Somebody else is opening the door for her, as well as yeah, that's that. That's what I was saying. That part's important.
The people in this limo are now the kids. You see several kids hanging out the sunroof of a car, and you may think they're going to be important. I would almost need to watch again and see if there's any other visual cues or clues in that piece, because I didn't notice anything there myself.
I know, just like I said, those few bits of her in the car, but that's it. I think the rest of it is kind of just its own, the dream for sure.
And then driving on Mullholland Drive, and we drove on that road, right? And we only mention that because it's a very winding road. Like, it's a very famously known winding road, and that's why it was the backdrop for this, I believe, right? I mean, essentially,
yeah, because it's in the hills and it's a famous road, kind of like.
Oh, well, you see these two cars racing, right? And you're going around curves blind, so, and that's when the accident happens.
Yeah, then the accident is filmed pretty dope too, because it like is very artistic, I'd say, because it's like slow motion and then quick, but it's like it's weird to watch. It feels something feels weird about watching it.
It does. It almost feels to a certain degree like almost a Matrix, in the fact that you get a very fast-paced sequence slow down, but then it kind of speeds up through certain things, but it's all practical.
Anytime Lynch uses slow-mo, it just unsettles me. So,
and then you can really see these people getting fucked up in this car.
Oh yeah,
right? Like you see the woman in the back of the car like shake around, and you see the guy that's in the back seat kind of turned around talking to her, like you see him fly around because his seatbelt's unbuckled at that point, right?
Right.
And then you just see all this smoke. You know.
Also, while we're here, number 4 on this is, an accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident. All right, we're noticing the location, which is on Mullholland Drive, but we're also noticing like the scenery around there, right?
Yes.
Where the car is pulled over at first.
Where this car is stopped comes back into play later, right?
So,
this is a very...
Yeah, so going forward, she kind of wakes up and is like,
she's in a daze,
walking around. Yeah, you just think she's kind of like confused from the accident and whatnot. They don't tell you that she's basically having amnesia. So that's kind of what's happening. She wanders around and finds an apartment where someone's leaving and kind of sneaks in on while they're leaving, and then it ends up being Aunt Ruth's place, but we'll get there.
Yeah, she winds up basically passing out, right? So that bit doesn't make a lot of sense at first, but you see her cross the road, and she's very startled by the fact that she almost gets hit by a car there. Yeah. And like I said, you don't know if it's amnesia or if it's a concussion. Either way, it's kind of set up as like, just survivor confusion at that point.
Yep. And then we go to one of my favorite scenes from this movie. Very iconic. And you know what? There's something that I'm going to have to talk about. We'll get there when we get to the man. But this is a scene with I don't know that guy's name, that actor, the guy with the bushy eyebrows.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. He's very well known. I just don't have his name in front of me.
He's also in Twin Peaks: The Return, because David Lynch just kind of took from all of his movies and shit and cast Twin Peaks: The Return. So it was fucking
anyone that can act to his vision. I think he's a frequent collaborator with, just because they're easy to understand, and it's easier for him trying to,
especially if the actor understands that they aren't going to even know what's happening themselves. So
yeah, it's not going to make sense to you, but you just got to be along for the ride.
So they're sitting in Winky's diner, two dudes across from himself, and he's basically telling them, so I wanted to meet you here because I had a dream. And he's like, and it's actually the second dream. They're the same dream.
Had it twice. Mm-hmm.
And I'm basically in the diner here, and I'm sitting right here where I am, and you're standing right over there, and he like points at the counter,
and like basically behind the counter in the corner there. Yeah, very eerie.
And he's like, and I'm scared, and you're scared, and you're in both dreams also. And then I realize what it is. And he says, there's a man in back of this place. And I can sense him and feel him and see his face through the wall, basically. And the other guy's like, so you basically wanted to come here and see that that's not real. And he's like, all right, well, let's go. And he gets up to pay. And then you're like, oh shit. Because he looks back and sees him at the counter. And then you just like, I don't know, the way there's a shot, that's not much terrifying shit actually happening. It's just a dude sitting at a diner, but it is, I'm terrified watching it. Like,
it's Lynch, so you know it's not going to be good.
It's unsettling, yeah. I love his daytime horror, you know.
Yes, it's not scary in the fact that it's gory or anything else. It's the psychological thriller of that and the unsettlingness of the sounds and music in the background that you're going like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. So they slowly walk out back, and here's what I like is they show things like he notices the phone booth, and he notices like the colors of different things around him. Like you can tell he's recognizing these things from his dream, not because he's actually seen it before. Mm-hmm. And he walks back there. I mean, very slowly, and it's fucking intense. And as soon as you're like, oh, we're just about to turn the corner, no. The man, as he calls it, emerges. And that motherfucker passes out and basically dies.
Yeah, it scares him to death.
Right.
Yeah. My interpretation of that, right? Like, he passes out. You don't ever know what goes on from there, though.
Here's what is depressing. The person who portrayed the man was at Crypticon, and I didn't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I could have gotten a signature. She's the fucking woman who plays the nun in all those horror movies now and shit.
Oh.
The really interesting bone structure and shit?
Yes, okay.
That's her. Just in black sludge with like, you know, like a weird nose piece on and some other shit.
Yeah.
But I was like, damn. Because I love Mullholland Drive, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's very unsettling with that, right? I mean, in a comical way, the makeup and just the quick appearance looks like a version of old Greg that's like covered in like dark soot or black makeup all the way. It's just unsettling in a way that just doesn't look natural at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quick and it's brief here, but obviously it scares his man to death. Literally drops down and goes.
This is, I mean, we'll have to get there when we get there, but there are woodsmen in Twin Peaks The Return that are basically...
This?
Very, yeah, they're charcoaled out, creepy looking things like that, yeah.
There's lots of stuff in here that is very much the original Twin Peaks series and some stuff from The Return as well, right? There's a lot of that kind of balance of, is this the same universe? You know, that's a question to ponder. But will he ever get a straight answer? No. Don't expect one. Just let your imagination run wild with what you see and what you think might be in the same place.
Then we get a shot of an ashtray with piano keys on it. It's a circular ashtray, though. And it's like yellow and blue and has like some pianos and there's a bunch of cigarette in it. And there's a red lampshade and a phone ringing.
And that's the yellow phone.
This, again, if you're asking me, is reality. She's sleeping. That's why she's not answering the phone, because that's where the bed is.
Mm-hmm.
She's just not answering the phone. We'll talk about why or who's calling and stuff later, but yeah, then we get Betty arriving in Hollywood, and it's like all sunshine and glimmery out, and like she's with these two old people.
Well, first she walks
in. I kind of think she's with them, but then she's like, turns out to have just met them and was like talking with them on the flight or something probably, and is just like, oh yeah, well I'll see you later. But when they get in the cab, they kind of maniacally laugh, and it's very creepy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a bizarre couple too, right? Because you're like, oh, is this her grandma at first, grandma and grandpa, or what, right? Because it's just her and the woman at first.
Yeah.
Oh, and they have a nice little dialogue exchange, and then it gets far more sinister when they laugh.
Oh, by the way, the last shot had 2 more references for this card of the lampshade and cigarettes and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, notices appearances of the red lampshade. And 6, notice the robe, the ashtray, the coffee cup, which I believe is referring to a scene later, not now, but still, there you are noticing an ashtray in that scene. So she goes to the apartments, and she meets Miss Lenoir, who's like, call me Coco.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of get, like, some of this stuff Lynch drags out just because he likes, it's interesting character development. You can see how these people respond in varieties, with
interact
people and interact. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, who they are, basically. And she's exploring her, aunt's apartment and finds Rita in the shower naked. Which she just thinks is some strange woman naked in the shower. She's like, she thinks she's one of her aunt's friends. She's like, oh, sorry, I didn't know my aunt was going to have somebody here.
Yeah, I didn't know Aunt Ruth let you in. Okay.
And she kind of just starts taking care of her.
Yeah, and it's interesting. She's like, oh, sorry, like, she's... There's this curiosity of her, like, wanting to eavesdrop and chat with her while she's in the shower, and then she realizes she shouldn't, and so she's like, asks her name, and then, like, politely removes herself from the room, like, oh, that's... She kind of catches herself being a creep, right?
Yeah.
I like the self-awareness that she shows there.
And she says, at one point during this scene, she says, I'm in this dream place. And she means Hollywood, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But also maybe she means the dream that she's in. Which we'll get back to that later. So she kind of starts taking care of her and just like lets her take another nap afterwards. And she's like, well, if you have a concussion, we really shouldn't let you. Because she's like, oh, I'm here from I was in an accident and stuff. Then we have those like creepy overhead shots of the city with just like silence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like looking straight down. And you're like, man, that'd be an easy shot to accomplish nowadays with drones and stuff. But like, think about all the wasted fucking money on just quick helicopter shots of just, okay, go get some insert shots, basically.
Yeah, that's your job. Like, that's a whole thing. It's a...
Second unit.
Yeah, much more manageable now and cheaper. So you got to appreciate those, too, though, because those did require a lot more work than they do now.
It was beautiful. I really like that shot that's looking down because it's not what you usually see when you're looking at city shots. They usually do like, oh, look, get a really beautiful shot, give it some depth. And David Lynch is like, no, fucking make it look flat. God damn it.
Yeah, aerial flat view, like with very balanced lighting to make it look flat.
It looked good.
The other thing I think, I guess, in the last sequence there, but when she's in there, so Rita, as we come to know her by, doesn't remember her name. So she sees a poster in the bathroom at Aunt Ruth's and just chooses the name Rita.
Mm-hmm.
She tells that to Betty. That was a very quick thing because they make a very big thing of like,
what's your boyfriend's name? My boyfriend's name is George Glass.
Well, the interesting piece to me is like she sees a Hollywood star on the wall and takes her name. And, as we get through this movie, we see a lot of similar things here. So it's one of those early on moments where you're like, okay, so you're going to Hollywood to be somebody you're not really. Or it's not the person who you are now. So it's just another layer of complexity there.
Definitely.
And they investigate her head injury on there, right? And you see like just this bruised line on her there. So validating the concussion at that point. But now to skip ahead where you're going, because we're going to get into some really interesting stuff here.
We have, you introduce the character of Adam, who's basically... his movie's being taken over by gangsters. And it seems like we learned that it's kind of already just been run by gangsters, but the gangsters like taking over, like, no, you're going to put this person in the movie, basically. But the way the scene plays out is nuts. And that's what this scene where Angelo Badalamenti himself, the guy who does the score, is the one spitting out the coffee and stuff. And it's just funny. I didn't know that the first time I watched it.
And he's fascinating there, right? You get these mobsters in there, and they're all kind of very off-put by the whole situation. And, there's 3 groups. There's, like, the film director. There's, I don't know if they're bankers or whatever you want to call them, that are kind of introducing them to, what are those brothers? What do they call the brothers there?
Castigliani brothers. And then his manager's sitting with him, and the other 2 are just film executives, I think.
But yeah, film executive or bank managers, basically, they're like, I made sure to get this is some of the best espresso in the world.
Yeah.
And he spits it out on there after he finally tries it. And that's a very distinct mug. So you're going to see that espresso mug and drink and saucer and all that. That's going to be kind of a thing. So just kind of watch out for that bit. But essentially they tell him, like, hey, you need to cast this person in this role. You've already lost the lead. You
girl.
can recast it. Yeah. This is the girl. They show her a picture. And
I'm not putting this girl in my movie.
yeah, Adam Kesher's just kind of like, no.
There's no way!
And my favorite thing about him, he's sitting there with the fucking golf club on the desk in front of him.
Yeah.
And at first, like, you kind of see some glimpse of it at an angle, and then you realize, like, why the fuck's he got a golf club? And he's basically like, no, I'm not fucking doing that. And he's like, I'm the goddamn director of this film. You're not telling me what to do. And even though the mob's basically like, hey, we're financing this shit, it's probably how they were laundering their fucking money. Yeah.
I like the when he spits out the coffee, though, and he gets up and he's about to just walk the fuck out, and they're apologizing. And all hell breaks loose for just like 5 seconds, and the one guy is like, help me! And then they all just like go quiet. And I love this shit, right? He goes outside, and he's like, he gets his car pulled up by the valet, and then he, with the golf club in hand, is like, goes over. Is that the Castigliani brothers limo? He's like, I think so. And he goes over there and he says, Castigliani brothers? And then he fucking bashes the car's windshield in with the golf club and shit, and hits a couple of the lights, and then runs back to his car and, and speeds away.
That's a great moment because, yeah, he asks, is this Castellano brothers? And then he goes, none of your fucking business or whatever else. And then at that point in time, he just fucking smashes that windshield in. Great fucking hits at that club. That was a beautiful scene. You're like, what the hell? And you're like, okay, I guess this guy's got a temper.
Yeah. And then you have the weird kind of overlord dude who's sitting in the weird wheelchair that they always talk through the glass.
The other room, yeah, and he's always in a wide open room. And to me, this is very, very Lynch, right? Because you get this kind of ominous figure. You don't really understand what they're doing back there.
And he basically doesn't say anything. The other guy says everything, and he's like, so, this is what happened. And he's like, you're asking me what to do? Like, you know what to do, basically. And he's like, so we should shut it all down? These guys are just like, I don't know. Should you?
Yeah, which they do.
Yeah.
Shut it all down.
Let's see.
Then we jump to that.
Yeah, we jump to the 2 guys in the office here.
And they all look chummy at first, right? They're having a nice conversation. And
again, I will say this. I believe this is reality, not the dream.
Yeah. Yes, there's some weaving back and forth, and there's no basic distinguishing between these things here, right? Which makes this scene makes a lot more sense later on.
Yeah.
But these 2 men having a conversation, and one of them's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, yeah, you making ends meet or whatever, something real basic along those lines. And then he's like, yeah. And then pulls out that pistol with the silencer on it and just fucking shoots him.
Yep. He mentioned something about, is that so-and-so's black book?
Oh, yeah, the black
book. It is. And then he shoots him for it, basically, and then accidentally shoots his gun again through the wall.
Yeah, as he's basically trying to put that gun in this guy's hand and make it look like a suicide, shoots through the wall, and then he's like, he hears a woman yelling, so he goes out there, which is a hilarious scene, in the fact that, not that she got shot through the wall, but she's like, something fucking bit me really hard. And
this is what, again, this whole scene, this sequence all reminds me of Twin Peaks: The Return, because it is very unsettling to watch this guy try to kill this woman because he can't do it quickly. So just like her struggling to survive is kind of hard to watch, but it works.
It is. And then beyond that, like, as he's trying to take her out, this janitor kind of pokes his head around the corner and sees that. And then he has to improvise quickly, and he tells him, "Hey, I need your help down here. This woman needs medical help. You got to come down here."
Yeah.
Takes her into a room and then fucking shoots her, kills her off, and then shoots the janitor, and then shoots the fucking vacuum cleaner. Grabs the black book, wipes the gun off, fucking heads out the fire escape.
Yep.
Very, very crazy sequence in there, because, so far up into this point, we've had the one accident, but nothing really significant in, besides some glass breaking, and then you start seeing people get shot, and you're like, whoa, okay, this is kind of advancing quickly.
Did something change in your audio settings? It sounds like there's a bunch of air coming through with your stuff now. Fan on a computer or something maybe that I'm hearing?
No, my heater kicked on behind me here.
Oh, I gotcha. It's hitting the compressor now. Like it's at that perfect level of the gate or whatever, so.
Okay.
I'm just hearing it is all. People will have to deal with it. It's fine.
I could hear you scratching Booger earlier and him kicking himself, so we'll see. So after he heads out that fire escape, we get another scene change.
Yeah, Betty's talking to Aunt Ruth on the phone about Rita, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And reveals that, you don't have a friend named Rita? Like, what is this? I don't know what's going on here. And her aunt's just like, I don't know what you're doing. Why is somebody in my apartment? And then she goes to Rita and is like, so you're not Rita. Well, like, what the fuck what was this? Who are you?
It's basically when she's like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know. She's like, well, let's look in your purse and, look at your ID. And she's like, fuck, I don't want to do that. She's like, bitch, I gotta know who you are. I can't just let you be staying here.
Yeah, and she's already had a very maternal instinct of, like, looking out for this woman and, like, taking care of her, knowing next to nothing about her, because she can clearly tell she's distressed and is having some issues.
And then
they find that
she beats the second level of the Doom, the blue key.
Yes.
And also finds like a bunch of money in there, like $10,000 or something. What is it? 20,000? I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to the total. But
I don't even know if they had a total, but
they basically decide they got to hide the money and try to figure out what the hell's going on with this woman.
Yeah.
And they get the money put into a hat box and basically stash it back up in the closet.
Yeah. And then Joe is like the hitman guy.
Yeah.
Hanging out with a prostitute and another guy. And I guess they're about to play China.
The other guy's working with him, right? Like they're buddy in this scene.
Well, they're friends. I don't know if they're working together, but they're friends at least. Looks like they're about to go play Chinese finger cuffs in the back of this van, though. With this beat up prostitute, which is unfortunate. He's asking her about. Have you seen this other? He's asking her if she's seen someone, basically, like a new girl, blonde, kind of beat up.
Yeah. No, it says brunette. Brunette, is she kind of beat up, isn't he? And basically, he's looking to see, in the reality sequence we're in here, I think this falls into place much later.
Yeah.
So.
Adam basically is called and told that the set's closed or whatever. He figures out the set's closed and everyone's fired for now, basically. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, his secretary's there and she's like, hey, you need to come in here right now. We can figure this out. And he's like, fuck you, I'm going home.
Yeah.
He's really adamant about going home. He's just like, fuck it all and heads there.
Yeah. And then we're kind of cutting back and forth between Rita and Betty and him. And Rita and Betty are basically at this point decide to check for a police report to see if there was an accident on Mullholland Drive, because she remembers, I remember the Mullholland Drive.
Yeah, and Rita's really hesitant about involving anyone else at this point, but Betty, like, talks her into it. She's like, you really gotta, we'll call from a payphone, they won't track us, we'll just call and ask, like, a real vague question, right?
It'll be like in the movies, she says.
Yeah, exactly.
Adam gets home and sees the Gene's pool cleaning service truck in his driveway. And then he goes inside and he's like, sees no one cleaning his pool. And he's like, yep, okay, cool. And
yeah, he calls his wife's name, and what's her name?
I don't remember.
Lorraine.
And yeah, she's banging the pool guy who's Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah, Gene and Lorraine are laying in bed when he opens the bedroom door, and
she's mad at him. She's like, "Oh, you've done it now."
Yeah, she's pissed. She's like, I mean, she knew he's coming home to catch her or whatever, and she's just basically like, "Yeah, fuck you."
Yeah.
Not even like remotely. There's no remote signs of her feeling bad or anything about it, and she's just fucking pissed off by the inconvenience of all this.
Yeah, and then he takes her jewelry. I love this part. It's fucking hilarious. He takes it into the kitchen, and she's bitching and, like, starts putting on her clothes and stuff. Or at least some clothes. And then he goes into the garage and goes back into the house with a bucket of paint and pours this, like, neon pink paint into the box of jewelry and just, like, smushes it all around before, like, she gets out and starts attacking him.
He gets it out his hands, and she starts to attack him, and then Jean comes out and fucking attacks him. So they get fucking pink paint all over her robe and on a bunch of spots on Adam's clothes. And Jean, I don't think, really winds up with much paint on him, but...
No, he punches him, throws him out.
Yeah, basically whoops his ass.
And then we get a shot of the payphone outside Winky's that we recognize.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get them approaching and calling using said payphone to find out if there was an accident on Mullholland Drive, which they did. And it was confirmed. And then they hang up before they can ask, they're like, who is this?
Yeah, they ask who it is, and she just hangs up the phone.
Then they go inside Winky's. And the waitress is named Diane, which triggers the name Diane Selwyn in Camila's head. Rita's head, sorry.
Yeah.
And,
easy to do.
Yeah. And so she's like, oh, well, we got to go home and figure out who the fuck that is.
But before you get to that, then we go back to Adam's place.
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth here. So.
Exactly, yeah. He shows up and is just yelling obnoxiously, Adam Kesher! And then basically knocks out fucking the wife and Jean and just continues yelling.
Yeah, like he fucking like decks Jean once and then decks Lorraine too, and like the punch on her, like, because she's climbed onto his back and is like monkeying around on him, and then realize he's gone. So it's kind of a wild scene, though.
Then the fucking the guy shows up and tells Adam that he's broke at his door, and this guy, the guy with the mustache, he's also in Twin Peaks: The Return.
His name, they call him Cookie in this. So they say, hey, Cookie, man. He says, yeah, your line of credit's closed. He's like, but I've got money. He's like, yeah, but your line of credit's closed.
Yeah, there's this whole thing where basically the gangsters are like, nah, fuck this. You're doing what we say or we're going to fucking destroy you.
Yeah, it just shows you how wide their reach is because, they're able to basically shut this man down here in nothing short of an afternoon.
Yeah, so. Then he gets on the phone with his secretary again who's like, yeah, you are broke, confirmed. And also, do you know anybody named the Cowboy? There's a guy named the Cowboy, and he wants you to go talk to him. He's like, I mean, fucking, I guess, sure. Why not?
At this point, he's like, whatever. Everything else is fucked up. Who cares?
Maybe he'll kill me. That'd be cool. So he goes and talks to the Cowboy.
Louise is the neighbor, one of the neighbors there at the apartment complex, and she's knocking on Betty's door.
Yeah.
And Coco comes up and like gets her to go away, but basically she's, saying someone here is in trouble. Someone here is in trouble. And like is real convinced about it. And Coco gets her to go away, and like you just get a quick glimpse of Rita sitting on the couch on the inside, and that's kind of who she's looking at. She's not really looking at Betty. She's looking more at Rita. So just some foreshadowing there.
Foreskin shadowing. Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, Adam Drive, where the Cowboy is at. I like how the ranch lights come on. He he walks over there and is kind of just like, see it, what's up? And then you see the lights come on and like the static sounds. And the fucking cowboy walk up. This mystical motherfucker. He's up to some dark shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's very interesting because with the whole thing where he's like, no, you're not thinking. You're too busy being a smart aleck to be thinking.
Yeah, he's
I
very
want you to think.
Mm-hmm.
He pretty much, he's like cool with taking shit. He's like, no, I realize what you're saying with your words and what you mean. You're just brushing off what I'm saying, but I need you to take me seriously, punk. And you're gonna fucking, when you see that girl, you're gonna say, "This is the girl." And he's like, "I mean, fuck, I guess."
And then he gives this specific instructions. He says, "You'll see me one more time if you do good, and you'll see me 2 more times if you do bad." And then basically he turns around and walks off, and Adam turns around to leave, and the fucking light goes out. It's just creepy.
Yep. Which, watch him just have, like, flipped the light switch. I mean, right? He could have just turned the lights on and off. But it's still spooky.
Well, the way it flickers on, and then the way it kind of flickers off.
Exactly.
And that is so well lit. That whole scene in there looks so great.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and then we go back to them, and they're reading lines, rehearsing lines. Betty's in a pink robe. Rita's in a black and red robe.
And then the manager, Coco, stops by again and tells Betty to get rid of the trouble. She's like, basically, she's like, if she says there's trouble, she's usually right, but once in a while she's wrong. So if you got trouble, get rid of it. Very interesting.
Yeah. Then she goes to an audition and reads a scene with a really old, creepy, tan leather bag of a human. I don't know who that guy is, but my God, did he look like a tan leather bag from the 90s.
Yeah, and like she gets this first audition on the kindness of her aunt who's helping her out, right? And all these people in this room seem to know her aunt and kind of all know each other, and she has this quick little introduction with everybody in the room. So
yeah, and obviously she does really well in the audition. It's this whole creepy thing that about her and this dude or whatever, and then everybody congratulates her kind of, and then this one woman is like, "Oh, you got to come with us. We're gonna you come meet this director guy. Basically, he's awesome." And then you go to where they're shooting the movie, or they're at least doing auditions for the movie.
I like the setup on this, right? You basically see a group,
the Sylvia North story.
Yeah, you see them recording this scene, and they're in a recording booth, and then you see like the sound booth, and then obviously you pan out.
Again, I think they're just doing auditions, but they're doing it on the actual set, which
is really cool.
Production. It's weird, but yeah.
At first, you don't really know what's going on, but it pans out to this wide shot, and like you see that they're actually filming this, and you come to see Adam sitting over there, and paying attention and taking notes with all that. So
yeah, and he does the Adam. Is there something you want to say to me? This is the girl, and he just does it like so, like. Fuck you, dude.
But he has become complacent in this, right? So he just kind of has accepted that.
Yeah, and him and Betty are giving each other fuck me eyes, basically.
They lock eyes twice, right? When she walks in the room, they lock eyes, and like you see this connection. And then after he agrees to hiring Camilla, right? I believe is who they say that's going to be in that role. Then you basically. He turns and looks Betty in the eyes again, and like this time it's like the real close up of like this intenseness of like
let's fuck.
Yeah, basically they're like, "Oh yeah,
I should put you in my movie and you should fuck me." That's what it says. So then they go on this whole investigating little scene with Diane, like finding Diane's address in a phone book or some shit. I don't know how.
Yeah, Diane selling is what they say. So
yeah, they go and they
1D selling in the phone book, and they find out the address over there. Then that's when they start to do this investigation piece. They go knock on apartment 12, but they get spooked by some stuff going on around there. Just Diane's like really, or not Diane, but Rita is like really paranoid about everything at this point. And then they finally go and knock on apartment 12. Yeah, we're looking for Diane. They're like, well, I traded apartments with her. She's over in 17 now, but no one's seen her for a few days. Oh, we'll go check. I'll come with you. And then her phone rings and she goes back inside. So they skedaddle over to the other place, go to 17.
Fucking sneak in.
Yeah, they sneak in. Like no one answers the door, so obviously Betty goes around the corner and like checks the windows, and like the one window pops open. So she crawls through the window and opens the door for Rita at the front door. But the thing is, like, there's immediately clues you need to be paying attention to, because she opens the door, like, covering her nose. And then they walk in, like, clearly there's something that smells bad in here. And then, you know, something to smell that bad, you assume there's going to be a dead body. So they do the Ghostbuster scene where they stay close. Stay close. Do exactly as I say. And they walk into a room and they see a dead body. And it's very dark. You can't really make out much from it at this point. But you see this person's dead, and they're kind of freaked out by it. They basically get the fuck out of there at that point.
Well, there's knocking, because the woman's knocking at the door, too. The same door they knocked on her place. She's knocking on the door.
12 knocks. Yeah, and
Rita's panicking, and then they go back to the place, to home or whatever, and basically decide to disguise Rita. They give her short blonde hair.
Mm-hmm.
And,
well, they have a pretty interesting moment there. Like, they're really doing the character development between these two, because you see Rita starting to chop off her own hair, and then Betty's like, no, let me help you out with that. I really want to do it for you. Let me do it. And then we see her with this blonde haircut and, like, looking completely different, right? And then you're like, okay, so did they cut and dye her hair or whatever? Because they show you this whole bathroom scene of, like, wigs and hair color and, like, dyeing a bunch of shit on the fucking background, so you don't really know what's going on. And then,
yeah, and then they fuck.
Basically.
There's a long, drawn-out scene of, oh, have you ever done this before?
Yeah, it's a...
Let's just say Alf would very much like to participate in whatever they did.
Yeah.
Eating pussy.
And that was interesting just because she comes in there with the wig on, and then you're like, oh, that is a wig. Then takes it off, and then she's like, why don't you sleep in here? You don't have to sleep on the couch. And then, yeah, there's this whole tension between them, and it escalates, obviously. And I don't know if they finished or not. They don't really tell us.
They finished. Because they they finished. They took their shirts off and everything. They finished. I mean, the other one got in the... Rita got in bed naked, but Betty was clothed and then was like, all right, now I'm going to take my tits out, too.
So at 2 a.m., Rita starts sleep-talking. Silencio.
No hay banda.
And...
no hay orchestra.
So she wakes up Betty, and she's like, hey, you got to go somewhere with me. And at first, Betty's like, what? No, not really.
2 a.m. Eat this pussy again, bitch.
Then she realizes, like, I just told this woman I loved her when we made love, or I'm in love with her, so maybe I should listen to her.
Maybe I should just go.
Yeah, so, okay, yeah, where are we going to go? Now? Right now? Okay.
All right, so before we begin this Club Silencio scene, I will note on the card here, number 7, what is felt, realized, and gathered at the Club Silencio? Which is this dope old theater that they walk into. With this guy on the stage who is called the Magician. No hay banda. There is no band. This is all a tape recording. It's all recorded. He says, like, he goes on for a while. No hay banda. It's all a tape.
You hear the clarinet play, and he does that, and he, like, kind of shows the room, like, that the clarinet's going to play. Then he talks a little bit about the trombone, and then the trumpet. And,
again, this is the movie saying, hello, this is a dream. Mm-hmm. Hello, you watching this movie, this is a dream. But also telling the characters, hey, you're in a dream, motherfucker. You are in a dream, bitch.
And we see the trumpet player, like, basically pass out and get dragged off. And then we get introduced to...
No, the trumpet player doesn't pass out and drop. They just stop playing and leave, don't they? And then the magician disappears.
The magician disappears after that, I think. But they drag the trumpet player off. He's the only one we see. We don't ever see a clarinet player or anyone else.
You see the singer. And she's the one who's dragged off.
Rebecca is dragged off the same way that the trumpet player was.
I just don't remember him being dragged off.
Or maybe he just turns around and walks through the curtain. I can't remember, but
He turns into blue smoke, basically, and disappears, the magician.
Yeah, and the singer is introduced as Rebecca Del Rio.
I believe she's playing herself.
Yeah, and then in the audience, like, she's singing beautifully, and you see kind of Betty and Rita are crying or kind of having a real emotional response to this performance.
Yes. And then at one point, she has, like, almost seizure-like shakes for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's Betty you're talking about. Betty has these shakes. Rita's, like, really concerned for
her. And eventually the singer collapses, but the singing continues. And
yes, to
carried off.
Go along with the tape thing, yeah, which is interesting.
Betty goes into her purse, assumably for tissues because she's crying so much, and finds the blue box. Which obviously would line up with the blue key that they found.
Yes, the blue key they found earlier, right? And that blue key wasn't a traditionally shaped key, which is something else, right? So there's the reality and there's the dream versions of this key.
And
they get out of there in a hurry. They go back there because
they found that fucking box and they're like, what the fuck? So anyway, what is felt, realized, and gathered at the Club Silencio? Obviously, felt would be sadness and fear, maybe confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Realized would be that this is not the real world. And gathered would be the box.
Yeah.
The key, or the opposite of the key, the door, or whatever you want to call it, I guess.
Then we get back to Ruth's apartment, and Betty and Rita are basically arm in arm walking through the living room, and then Rita's alone looking for Betty as she goes to get the key out of the hat box, out of the closet.
Yep.
And she's looking for her. It doesn't make any sense to her at that point, but she goes ahead when she can't find Betty and actually puts this key in this box, opens it up, and in true Lynch style, it's a beautiful box, right? It's like a blue aluminum or something like that. Either way, and opens it, and it's empty, and then like we pan down into the darkness within.
Yeah. And then it kind of shows that wherever they were is empty. Now,
yes, and then you see
another woman.
We see what we assume is Ruth, because she's the red-haired woman back in the same style room where the bed is made and everything's closed up and buttoned up.
Yeah.
It's very brief, which in my interpretation is her death.
Whose death?
Ruth's death, that's mentioned later.
Oh. I mean, I just imagine...
My aunt died and left me money. It's kind of what I take from that piece. That's a little bit of dialogue that comes up later.
Yeah. I just assumed she had been dead, yeah. I mean...
Yeah, I think this
is... You meant specifically like how she died. I was like, she died here? I'm confused about what you're saying, but...
No, not her death. I just think that's kind of like leading into that, so...
Yeah. Well, because she exists in the dream world.
Yeah.
Weird. Oh, yeah. The Cowboys appears again, basically, and says...
Over the corpse and says, you can wake up now.
But it's not the corpse at this point. Like, it looks...
The positioning is nearly identical. We don't really see the face well enough.
It's not well lit enough this time for you to realize that it's not the same shot as it was before, because it's not as grimy and stuff before. It's still like... Yeah, like borderline the same shot. You're supposed to realize, oh, okay, so then she's waking up. Eventually gets her fucking ass out of bed. From the door knocking, which again explains why there would be the door knocking in the dream. It's the same person who was knocking on this door in the dream.
Yes.
And
this is basically where you kind of wake up from that dream sequence.
She's wearing a gray robe now because this is reality, and reality is gray. And in your dream, you wear a pink robe because life is colorful and fun.
Mm-hmm. So the old roommate comes over and says she left some things there, but it's implied that they had a breakup or something.
Well, that's the thing, is it's confusing because in the dream they said that we just swapped apartments. So did they just swap apartments? Because she's really exes with Camila, as we'll find out. So they just swap apartments and didn't fully move everything? I don't know. Because it makes sense. The first time I always, like, until the last 2 or 3 times I watched this, I assumed that that's what was happening too. Like, they went through a breakup. But
the thing I gathered
clear anymore,
and it's all speculation, is that I gathered that they were living together. The other gal just moved to the other apartment, didn't swap it, but she left some of her stuff in there, and she'd been trying to get it right because she said she hadn't seen her in 3 weeks or something when you're back to this reality point. Like, I haven't seen you in several weeks. So
yeah, again, I feel like I used to think that. I just don't anymore after this most recent viewing. But again, it's not really answered. So
we see the blue key on the desk, or on the I guess that's a coffee table there.
Yeah, she came over. She wants her lamp and her dishes. The piano ashtray, she realizes, which is hers, which she grabs. And she tells her, oh, look, by the way, those 2 detectives came by again. Basically, this is now her reality, and then we're about to see a bunch of weird psychedelic transitions, which are basically, in my opinion, supposed to be her flashing back or thinking about these key moments in the last few months of her life, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which are the things that were influenced in the dream as well, some of them. So, in the first one, she's like making coffee or whatever, and then she looks over and sees Camila standing there, like all dressed up.
Mm-hmm. And if you haven't figured out, or you're not paying attention, Rita in the version of reality is named Camilla.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we find out that obviously Betty is actually Diane.
Yeah. Which you'll get some of those names and why certain names are what later, but she's making coffee and makes it into a brown cup, and then walks over to the couch. And you see topless Camila laying on the couch, and then Diane steps over her, also topless and in short shorts, and you're like, okay, I like where this is going. And she's not holding that brown coffee cup anymore. She's holding like a glass of scotch or booze or something, I don't know what it is, but sets that down on the table where the ashtray is back, so you can tell that obviously this is a flashback, because the ashtray was still there and the drink changed. Then we kind of, they're like making out and shit, and then she's like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then it looks like she tries to like forcibly, like, she's like, I'm going to fucking get you off anyway. And she's like, no, stop it. And
it's questionable for sure.
Yeah. Then you see Adam sitting in the car with Camila doing the directing scene.
Yeah, and they're in a like a convertible car, and like the actor that's supposed to be in the scene is standing right there watching directions from Adam as he gives them to Camila and the other.
And he like clears the set so he can basically like flirt with Camila and try to like make out with her in the dark and shit.
Yeah. But Diane,
Camila is seeing Diane at this time and makes out with him kind of in front of her, and then gives her weird looks. And so Diane's kind of like, all right, this bitch. So you get to see, like right there, you're seeing why Diane basically hates Adam. And in her dream, he's living out a shit life. She's punishing him in her dream, basically, or whatever that version of that world would be. You know what I mean? Like, that's why he's married to someone else who's cheating on him. He's experiencing that shit in her dream. And then you flash back to them breaking up, basically, and she's like, "This, you didn't make this easy for me, so I'm not going to make it easy for you." And then you get some sad masturbating.
Yeah, which you don't even realize, like, at first. Like, it's kind of implied that.
Oh, yeah, you do. I mean, I did. I was like, yeah. No. It's sad.
I mean, she's crying but kind of shaking, and so it's unsettling, right? It's
but then it's rough. There's some pussy slapping in this masturbating. Like, at the end, it's like you hear like the wet slap sounds, and she's like, and you're like, all right, cool, get some.
It's not sexy in the traditional sense that you're like, no, this is hot.
It's depressing.
Yeah, because like this person's clearly going through some shit, and so you're like, okay, that sounds like a bad spot to be.
Mm-hmm. You see the red lampshade again.
And the black phone from earlier rings.
She's
the one in her apartment that
she's pretty much a call girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is going with the red lampshade and her answering the call. Like she was getting a call from a client earlier. That's why when we randomly saw the red lampshade during the beginning of the movie, or closer to the beginning anyway. And the phone call, yeah. So,
yeah, it gives her the address to 6980 Mullholland Drive.
Diane's like, yeah, the car's waiting. You coming? Or, yeah, she says, Diane, the car is waiting on the phone line, you know. And she gets in the car, and this is basically the same drive and music from the beginning. Oh, nice. Mac, you can't hear me. Mac attack. No, he can't. Booger, you're chewing yourself. I'm petting the dog over here, too.
So the Mullholland Drive street sign flashes just like it did earlier, and it's probably that same sequence.
It's the exact same, like, the shots. Maybe they're reused and cut a little bit slightly different, but they're, like, the same shots, you can tell. The same music, just so you know this is the same thing. It's saying, hello, do you remember this?
And it doesn't pan out
what the dream is based on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so
you get
the car stops, right? This limo stops
in the same spot.
Same spot as it stopped earlier, and you're like, oh fuck.
This makes sense.
Yeah, but you're like, this is gonna get dark right here. And then it's kind of one of those things that doesn't go exactly where you think it's gonna go at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Camilla comes out of the woods, grabs her hand, and she's like, oh, it's a shortcut. Just come with me. And they slowly walk up this hill to Adam's house at the top of the hill, right? And like, you know, you see him walking up this beautiful hill shot, like the beautiful LA in the background with the stars and everything in the sky. It's like oh, okay. You're kind of in a real special spot over there is what they're kind of setting up for you.
Yeah. They get up there and they talk to Adam for a minute, and you kind of get the sense that Camila is a way more successful actor at the time, and Betty is kind of like, you know, they're not dating at this time anymore. They just probably recently broke up, but she's trying to keep her in her life and be friends with her still, but Betty's not having it. But she's trying to, like, you know, still do something with her career because she's essentially a call girl, if you want to take that route. So then you see that Coco is introduced, and that's actually Adam's mom. So this is just basically where you're, like, casting people from your everyday life in your dream, you know, just people that you see, like faces almost, and things and phrases and...
yeah, and that's great because, like, those familiarities just, like, do pop up for no reason, right? And they don't necessarily make sense, but it's just there because it's, like, it's something you can easily print and use, right? And so that is a good one. And then they do the little toast, here's to love, and, like, the fucking rage you see in Diane's face at this point is...
Well, also, I don't know if you noticed this, but the cowboy's at the party.
Oh, yeah, he's in the background there, isn't he?
He walks by real quick in the background out the door. And... to me, he says, remember, if you see me 2 more times, we, as the viewer of the film, did see him 2 more times.
Yes.
So she did bad. That's how I interpret that.
Yes.
Yeah, here's to love. And then she explains the jitterbug contest, which explains the beginning of the fucking movie, why we kind of saw that and her with the grandparents there.
Yeah, after that jitterbug contest, I kind of caught the bug for, you know, acting.
Yeah, and when my aunt died, she worked here. And, how'd you meet Camila? Oh, we met on the Sylvia North story. Oh, wasn't that directed by Bob Broker? Yes. Basically implying that she took it's just a dream. You take a bunch of this weird shit and fit it into different puzzle pieces. Which is fascinating. And it's implied, they don't directly say it, that Adam and Camila are engaged now. basically. I mean, you could also say that maybe she's pregnant, but I mean, obviously, I think they're just trying to imply that they're getting married.
Yeah, they have that connection. That's one of the main reasons why Camilla wanted to break it off with her, right? Is that she found this other thing.
Yep. And then she also briefly makes out with the woman who was Camilla in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Who is, what did they say her name was? I don't even know if they did.
Maybe I don't think they did, yeah.
But she kisses another woman who has the, like, short blonde hair like Camilla converted hers to, or Rita converted hers to in the dream as well. So,
yes.
And then we switch over to Winkies, basically.
Well, not yet, because there's more espresso being drank, and the guy is staring at her from earlier.
Yeah.
In that same scene. And then Adam makes a snarky-ass comment that this is post his divorce from earlier. He says, yeah, the judge ruled in favor. She got the pool cleaner, I got the pool. So just kind of him being snarky there, but showing that like that little bit earlier was based in reality as well. Then we jump back to the hitman. I think you said his name was Joe?
Yeah, he's at Winkies and Betty's the waitress. And this is where the infamous phrase, "this is the girl," starts. When Betty hands him an 8x10 of Camila and says, "this is the girl." And he says, "don't hand me this fucking photo thing in here." And she's like, "it's an actress photo. Everybody has them." He's like, "you sure you want this?" Like, basically...
It's like, once you pay, it's done. There's no going back.
"I'll leave this blue key when it's done where we talked about." And she's like, "all right, cool." And then you see the other guy from the beginning, from his dream, who died during the dream.
Yes.
At the counter. Because I feel like this place, Winkies, is like her massive guilt and fear, and the worst she's ever felt is when she was doing this. Mm-hmm. So that's what that represents in her dream, I think, is like the ultimate terror and like guilt and the fuckery that she's done. Oh yes, and then you see the man behind Winkies with the blue box.
In the alley with the blue box, and then you see this blue box is in a paper bag.
Puts it on the ground.
Yep, puts it on the ground, and then it gets very Lynchian at this point. And you see the two old folks from the very beginning that had dropped her off from the airport kind of come running out of this little paper bag, laughing maniacally again. And you're just not expecting that, right? The first viewing, for sure.
No, there's lots of, like... Even now I'm thinking, man, what is the significance of that? Like, because they're in the dream, they're over the jitterbug contest thing. They're at the beginning laughing like maniacal bastards, and then they're here and again in a second. Oh, I think I just figured something out.
Spitfire.
Well, there's some sort of weird... It's not just a dream. I think that's the easiest way to describe it. But there's some sort of alternate thing within that has to do with that creature who is arguably from the Black Lodge, if you want to go that far. But
okay.
In the blue box, it's like an access to an alternate dimension and shit with doppelgangers and creepy shit. There's shit in there that isn't real. And that is the grandparents escaping that, basically, or getting out of it. But fucking A, you know, I mean, there's so many ways to tear this movie apart and be like, what the fuck am I watching? Exactly. The dream explanation is the easiest one, but it's... If you apply that to just like another supernatural element, everything still holds true, just that it's not a typical sleeping dream. It's more of a supernatural dream.
Yeah, and so you see them kind of run off, and then the next scene we get to is Diane is sitting on the couch, and she's staring at that blue key on the coffee table, meaning that Camilla's been killed.
Which, again, this is when she has the brown cup and the gray robe. So basically, when you saw her wake up from the dream, and the cowboy was like, hey, wake up. This is like 30 seconds or a few minutes after that. She was just, everything else we just saw was her remembering back to all the fucked up shit that's happened in the last few months. The most traumatic or the most memorable, whatever's, in her head. That she's thinking mistakes she made, everything she's guilty about, all that kind of stuff. Which is fucking fascinating.
Then you see that front door scene, right? You see the front door where underneath the front door, the old man and old woman crawl underneath it.
Yeah.
Run in, and next thing you know, they're life-size, basically, and they're in Diana's face, right? And
they're just, like, laughing and screaming and being like, whoa, and there's, like, strobe lights, and it's like...
Yeah, it gets very Lynchy in there with some of the lighting and the sound effects and the score and everything, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And she basically runs from them into her room, opens the drawer on her nightstand.
Very quickly shoots herself in the head.
Yeah, very quickly shoots herself and dies in the pose that we saw the dead body at earlier.
Yes.
So that's one of those interesting things. You're like, okay.
And smoke appears, and her body's like not there, and it's like blue flashing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this weird. A lot of people describe this movie as a Mobius strip, which is that like a circle of paper. If you had like a circular wristband, if you just turned one of the things and reconnected it, how it like if you were driving on this thing. I think there's Mario Kart levels that like basically where you're like driving on something. And then you drive around the loop, and then it turns, and you're driving around to the other side until you drive it all the way around back again. It's that, but in plot form. And then the creepy man, also like is seen again, kind of like looking. And then the grandparents at the jitterbug contest again, and then a bit of Camila, and then the Club Silencio again. And then this new character with like some dope-ass blue hair.
Yeah, the blue-haired woman is what I wrote her down as, basically.
I think that's what they called her.
It says Silencio, and that's it.
Go to credits.
Then we go to credits. Yeah. It's wild stuff, man.
And then I go to Pornhub. Because that movie worked up something fierce now. Man, that's a
lot to digest in that film.
Let's keep talking about it for just a few. You can't really break apart everything in this movie, but like, pay particular attention in the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues. We kind of talked about that. So it's the jitterbug contest.
Yeah, the jitterbug contest. It's overlaid there with the elderly folks and her.
So the elderly folks are like. There's something there with them that I'm not getting yet. But eventually I feel like I will still be confused by this movie and never fully understand it. And I'm okay with that. Just have to accept that, though.
Unless there's something on there that's not really presented to us and it's open for the interpretation, like is that her parents that she's letting down by being out here now?
I mean, that's...
There's just too many interpretations for some of that stuff.
That's what I mean. There's no way to definitely know. So some of it I think is intent. I feel like the intent was there for some of it. But notice his appearances of the red lampshade. Again, I think those represent both the prostitution and reality.
Yeah, I would agree. Because that first time we see that yellow phone dial out, right? No one answers the black phone on the other end that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we see that black phone ring, and that's the when she answers it and talks to Camilla. So we realize that that's the phone in reality, right? She's sleeping, so she can't answer the phone.
Can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kesher is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again? The first time it's mentioned is in the dream reality as Adam Kesher's movie during that meeting. The next time it's mentioned is in reality during that dinner meeting where they revealed that they were engaged and how they met. But not that it was directed by him, though. Another sign that, if nothing else, these are parallel universes that intersect sometimes. Like, that's another way to think of it. Number 4, an accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident. Yeah, notice the location of the accident, because it's, again, shown to you that the reason that happens in that is because of how it happens in reality. Who gives a key and why? Well, we kind of figured that out. it's the hitman. If you really wanted to go deep, Coco also gives her a key in the dream, but just the regular ass key to the apartment. Notice the robe, the ashtray, the coffee cup. This is just during the last segment there, I think. Just so you can decipher that, okay, she's remembering all this stuff. The her of now is wearing the coffee cup, wearing the gray robe with the brown coffee cup. What is felt, realized, and gathered? We already kind of went over that enough, I think. Did talent alone help Camila? Because people were inferring that she basically slept around to get her positions.
Yeah.
Including with Adam, so. Note the occurrences surrounding the man behind Winkies. Like, I don't even know how to fucking digest that. What do you mean by that, Lynch? I note it. I watched it. Did I know what the fuck I was looking at? Not necessarily. But I was terrified and intrigued. Maybe that's all that it is, you know? It's because David Lynch is like, it's almost more of an art as opposed to, it's just supposed to make you feel something, which that something could be fucking confusion.
Yeah.
Where is Aunt Ruth? Well, she's dead, in reality. Yeah, man, there's not much else to say, I feel like, that would go into, that wouldn't be just us being like spitballing about random ass theories. I think everything that's pretty solid we've presented. So
yeah, and when you compare this to, say, like Lost Highway, right, it's very easy to realize what's going on in this with the doppelganger situation, whereas Lost Highway, it's a little more subtle and it's a little more bizarre.
Well, there's a body swapping and a doppelganger situation in that one.
Yeah, and so with this, like, it's clearly that, and you see the Betty name tag from the waitress and all these things. So, like, we're given all these clues and all these things to put together this puzzle with. And this one's pretty coherent when you take the notes and you look at it and you kind of see what it was. But there's still those, just enough things in there that you're like, what the fuck? Like the old people, right?
Yeah.
What do they mean? And then, obviously, the person behind the building, the man behind the building, right? And we see that that's, well, what is that?
Fear, basically.
We see them appear several times, but we also see him appear at that blue lockbox. So is that like the key to something else, to this otherworldly element that we're not experiencing, right? But
again, if you apply it to Twin Peaks logic,
if you apply it to Twin Peaks,
it's very interesting, because that would be sort of a woodsman type creature, mystic creature.
Yeah, the red room, like the threshold as you cross through this little blue box, right? That's, these things happen there. So there's a lot of stuff if you wanted to try it back in. If you think that, like, the Lynch stuff is all tied together to some degree, which...
Again, I think some of it, to some degree, David Lynch is just doing some weird shit to evoke certain responses, as opposed to making a 100% coherent plot. Although sometimes they're more coherent than other times, so...
Absolutely. If you have any thoughts or anything that we totally missed the mark on this one, let us know in the comments, because everyone's going to have their own interpretation of Lynch stuff, especially this one. It's, like I said, I think this one's nominated for awards because there's a lot of stuff that's easy for people to piece together and do stuff with and actually kind of get a cohesive story out of.
Yeah. Sexy thriller is what it's called. Well, I agree with that. I was thrilled, and I was sexied.
You were thrilled by the sex?
100%.
Yeah, there you go.
Naomi Watts, man, let me tell you. If any of you are looking for any last-minute birthday gift ideas, oh, Naomi Watts. With a big ribbon on her head.
Oh, God.
No.
No, we're not condoning you to kidnap Naomi Watts. Now, if you find magazines of her or something like that, Alec might like those to put on as well.
Blown up stills of her nude from this movie. I'd be down with that too. Yeah. 4K resolution.
Nice. Now you're getting picky.
I don't want pixelated nipples. That's all I'm saying. Well, I guess that's all for today's episodes. Tell us what you thought of Mullholland Drive. You've seen Mullholland Drive? You've seen other David Lynch movies? Maybe you were like, I've never watched Mullholland Drive. I got to see what these motherfuckers say about it first, because I don't know. Because I've done that with a few movies, listened to some podcast reviews, and been like, all right, yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Check out the Lynch stuff. I mean, the fun part about it is you're not going to get a straightforward, like, tightly wrapped gift, right? It's going to be one of those things that you got to put the legwork into it, and you got to be okay with your own interpretation on it, because if you can't handle those movies, his stuff's just going to piss you off, because it's not going to make sense, and it's going to take the joy out of movies for you.
Yeah.
So you got to be a little bit more open to the artsy style here. And stuff.
You have to at least you have to have a certain IQ to understand Lynch films. No.
I'm not trying to be that pretentious. You just have to be okay with interpreting things.
It's a fucking meme, Justin.
Calm down, Alec. You just clipped the microphone.
I did it on purpose. It doesn't hurt the microphone.
Hurts my ears.
That was the point.
All right, I'm sick of you, so like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Eat my ass. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Frog Brothers Podcast. We'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, and if you're listening on the audio feed on Spotify or Apple or Twitcher or wherever you listen, tell your friends and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube at youtube.com/thefrogbros. Hit us up on Instagram at Frog Bros Podcast, on Twitter at bros_frog, on TikTok at Frog Bros Podcast, and follow us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group Frog Bros Video by searching just that, Frog Bros Video. Hit request to join and you'll be approved. We have shirts available. The link is in our Instagram bio and below in the description. And you can find stickers on Etsy at Frog Bros, all one word. Additionally, if you'd like to give us a call and leave a voicemail soon, our Patreon will be live and we'll be posting monthly responses and reactions to the voicemails. Dial 816-832-5388.